living in a computer-programmed reality, and the only clue we have to it is when some variable is changed and some alteration in our reality occurs. We would have the overwhelming impression that we were reliving the present, déjà vu, perhaps in precisely the same way, hearing the same words, saying the same words. I submit that these impressions are valid and significant, and I will even say this: such an impression is a clue that at some past time point, a variable was changed, reprogrammed as it were, and that because of this, an alternative world branched off.
As the music fades, as Philip K. Dick's visionary words resonate and trail off into the distance of time, welcome to another edition of Free Association Radio. I'm Robert Phoenix. I'm here. I'll be with you for hopefully at least 90 minutes, perhaps more. Depends upon how long I'm able to hold the stream of consciousness and make you feel somewhat entertained and hopefully informed over what's happening in the state of America, the world, the universe. We're going to go from the micro to the macro. We're going to go pretty far out there today, and we're going to look at the meltdown of the Democratic National Convention and democracy in general, and we're going to be looking at the meltdown of the solar system and even the galaxy as temperatures across Earth and across planets throughout our solar system are heating up to record numbers. And a lot of folks love to point to the fact that global warming is a reality and that man is actually the culprit in the global warming process, when in actuality what we're really looking at is we're looking at an astronomical phenomena where temperatures across, again, this solar system are heating up. Welcome to the show. I'm Robert Phoenix. Things are heating up here in South Texas. I am actually broadcasting to you live from Laredo, Texas. And it's right here on the border of the United States and Mexico. But I will tell you that Laredo is not a border town. Laredo is part of Mexico. It is clear that the encroachment is official, and we're just staying and hanging out and designating this area right now Mexico North. The real border town in Texas is San Antonio, which is about 2 hours north of here. If you want to catch a border culture, go to San Antonio. This is not a border culture. This is a culture that has been swallowed. If there is any culture here to begin with, it has been swallowed by the nationalist culture of Mexico. So it's a really kind of strange place. The streets here are unusual. They're when you turn on a street, it almost feels like you're turning on a side street. It doesn't feel like it's an actual street from an actual neighborhood. It's very, very unusual. The streets themselves are in absolutely deplorable condition, potholes, speed bumps that are uneven, and then we have intersections with stop signs, no stop signs, which is okay as long as you're paying attention. But generally speaking, you get four-way stops in most places. Here, that is not the case, so you really got to be on your toes. Luckily, it's not that hot, although today it is expected to be hotter. You may ask yourself, what am I doing down in Laredo? Well, my son is playing in a baseball tournament, and they won their first game 19-4 yesterday, but they are playing their nemesis tonight, formerly known as the Titans of Harlingen. Now they are called the Brownsville Wild Pitch. And these kids have been playing together since they were 6 years old, and they have gone to the World Series for the last 3 years in each of their age groups. So this year, we hope to put an end to their consecutive World Series streak and continue on our path. It's been really eye-opening and revelatory hanging out here in Laredo and just making some observations about what life is like in this part of the world. I'm actually writing a piece right now for the website, which I have not done for a while, but I'm about 3/4 of the way through, and in it I'm talking about the death of the Democratic Party, which, by the way, unless you are living under a rock or under some form of very powerful psychotropic medication, we're witnessing this. We're witnessing history in the making. We're witnessing people waking up in droves. Now, there's already been an awakening on the right, and there's been an awakening on the conservative tip. People are tired of being told what to do, what to think, what to say. It has become so utterly monotonous and stultifying that there is a jailbreak going on right now, and the jailbreak is happening in our consciousness. The jailbreak is the desire to be free, right? We have Saturn in Sagittarius. I'm going to drop a little astrology, and Saturn is the restraint. It is the muzzle. It is the man. Saturn is the ring around the planet. The planet is the consciousness. Saturn is the band that locks it in, right? Well, the ring is. So this is what we're dealing with Saturn all the time. Doesn't matter what planet it's in or what sign it's in. Not planet, sign. Doesn't matter what sign it's in. This is what we deal with Saturn. And in Sagittarius, we want to be authentic. We want to be free. We want to be able to speak the truth. We want to be able to see. We want to have vision. We want to have all these things that allow us to get a greater sense of who we are and our place in the universe, unrestrained and untrammeled. Do you like that little horse reference there for Sagittarius, untrammeled? That's what Sagittarius wants. And so when we have Saturn, the Saturn overlay on top of Sagittarius, we get limitation. We get restraint, constraints. And what are people doing? When you tighten the grip on something, people fight back. Give people a little bit of slack, give them a sense that they're free, the illusion that they're free, and they'll be complacent. They'll be complacent in the mendacity of their mediocrity for the most part. But you tighten the reins a little bit, and you tighten the reins enough so that there is a pushback, and I mean a significant pushback, then you'll see what you get. And what you get is what we're seeing now, where Donald Trump has become the voice of the people, the Vox Populi, the Willie Stark to some extent. Now, if you watch Trump, though, he is one cagey son of a bitch. And the reason why is that he is now, the guy knows how to morph a message better than almost anyone I've ever seen on the political circuit. And, I think Trump comes at this from the Trump space. I don't think anybody's writing speeches for Donald Trump. He is up there talking. He's talking. Now, that great speech that theoretically Obama gave the other night, I've got these liberal buddies who are part of this basketball forum. And, boy, they loved Obama, blah, 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 blah. But the great speech in the last 8 years. He doesn't write his speeches, just like he never wrote anything at the Harvard Review, just like he didn't write his book. He doesn't write anything. All he is a mouthpiece. And until people figure this out, they're still going to be under the delusion that somebody who speaks in a glib, informed fashion, your host, I'm sorry, gracefully, not in that group. At least I would hope not. I was watching Obama the other night, and it's like he just hits all those marks, right? He's got the right pause, the right inflection, the right glance to the left, the right glance to the right. He could go from patois jive to kind of middle American articulation and elocution. I mean, he is the consummate free-range rover when it comes to speech, communication, and the articulation of ideas, even if they're not his own. He's great. He's great. The problem is that that's what he's great at. That and maybe working behind the scenes to create the internecine struggles and dysfunction and destruction of the United States of America, which has been ongoing for the last 16 years. Let us make, even before that, we've got to go to, God, where do we start? I mean, Bush was taking a wrecking ball to America, and the only reason he got a pass, I hate to say this, was because he's white. And it's really difficult for me to actually say that, but he got it because he was white. Now, there is a case of white privilege. I'm sorry, stupid white privilege. Not even smart or articulate or informed white privilege. If there is the poster boy for white privilege, it's George Herbert Walker Bush. No, it's George W. Bush. W. I always get the two mixed up. You know what I'm talking about. So they were busy taking a wrecking ball to America. They created the situation that Barack Obama gratefully inherited. I mean, they laid the groundwork for the destruction and the desecration of the Middle East and North Africa so that they could continue to inflict damage, death, and destruction upon that area. Barack Obama has dropped 250,000 bombs. 250,000 bombs. How about that, boys and girls? Countless deaths. The death toll is immense. And what I don't understand is that the bleeding heart Democrats and liberals and progressives just don't seem to give a shit. They don't value life. I'm sorry. I'm making a blanket statement here, and there may be a lot of hand-wringing, and there may be a lot of consternation, but they don't value life. If they did value life, then they would make a much greater show to shut down the death and destruction of the Middle East and North Africa and all these drone flights. And not only that, look, okay, I want to be clear. I do not support abortion. Okay, and I'm going to be really clear about it. And the reason why is because I had an experience with it in my youth. Not even much of a youth, and it was terrible. It was absolutely terrible. And I got a close-up glimpse of what it's like to be engaged in the termination of a life, and it plagued me for years. And so I, for one, am not in favor of it. I went through another experience where, when I was younger, much younger, my girlfriend at the time had she was having a problem. She was pregnant, and she was having kind of a breech thing, and they came in and they were able to help her out because she was having real problems with the pregnancy not taking. That was actually a medical issue, and to that end, I was graced with the fact that something was going wrong and somebody needed to take care of something, or else this woman was going to get toxemia and die. So there was a practical application that was fine. There was an impractical application that absolutely railroaded my life in a significant way. I don't want to get into details. So just on the record, not for it, but I understand that there are times and reasons why it does have to happen. I've seen the other side of it. But again, it is an industry, and I've talked about this before, it is an industry that traffics in death and the profiteering off of death. We had all those videos that came up with Planned Parenthood about a year ago, again, down the memory hole, but they're selling. They are selling the fetal material, and they're selling for all kinds of different purposes, from stem cells to cosmetics to food additives, you name it. There's an industry there. That's another reason why I oppose. So we have from the cradle to the grave, where there is a real sense that life does not matter. And I know it's a strong statement, because if it did, there would be a greater show. A greater show. On the conservative side, most conservatives tend to be hawks as well. But I think even the conservatives are starting to tire of war, the endless conflict, the war without end. This is where we've been since 2000, 9/11/2000. Speaking of 9/11/2000, you know that there is a sea change and a paradigm shift in the air when the neocons go back to the Democrats. The neocons were originally Democrats. The neocons they're Marxists. They're Marxists with ties to Israel, which is a little different than the Chicago group, who are Marxists with less ties to Israel. Think of the Chicago group as Reform Judaism, if you really want to make that kind of an association. That's what they're like. And the neocons tend to be less reformed, and in fact, most of them have dual citizenship anyway. So, they'd be much more in alignment with more traditional tenets and beliefs of Judaism, because that's where they come from. Anyway, they were part of the Democratic Party until Reagan came along. And what happened when Reagan came along? Well, they realized that not only would Reagan be in for 4 years, there's a good chance he'd be in there for 8 years, and with Bush, even longer than that, because Bush would then be the presumptive Republican nominee and president, which he was. So we're talking 12 years worth of Reagan. Probably should have been 16, but because Bush stepped down and allowed Clinton, who is part of his genealogy, no doubt, to come in and take over for him, well, we had another 8 years of Bush light, or Bush left. So the neocons left, and they became part of the Reagan administration. They were there for the 8 years of Reagan and the 4 years of Bush, 12 years. Excuse me, I'll take a sip of carbonated water. When Clinton came around, what is this? Hello? Hello? I'm actually doing something right now. Thank you. Yes, this is what happens when you are in a remote location. They actually wanted to come into the room because they wanted to check on something with their Wi-Fi update. And they can't do it. Good radio show. They didn't know that. So I apologize. I had to interrupt the proceedings here. Anyway, the neocons were there for 12 years, and they left. And when they left, they went to places like American Enterprise Institute and the Brookings Institute. They went to GINSA. They went to all these think tanks. And it was at these think tanks during the 8 years of the Clinton administration that the neocons dreamt up the project for the new American century. Even though they were not on the front lines of American politics, they were like in the 12th house of American politics. They were simmering, they were stewing, they were brewing their great plan. The audacity to stage an event and to reform not only governance in America, but the world over, and redraw the map of the Middle East at the same time. This is exactly what they were doing during those 8 years in the creation of the project for a new American century, which became, by the way, 9/11. The two are inextricably linked. And then we throw in the third piece, which is the drafting of the Patriot Act, which was ready to go just days after 9/11 happened. And this is what the neocons did. This is what they were doing in the 8 years of Clinton. When Bush got elected, who did he lean on for his cabinet members? It was the neocons. Douglas Feith, Lewis Scooter Libby, John Bolton, Donald Rumsfeld, Dick Cheney, Paul Wolfowitz, Richard Pearl. These were the most influential people in Washington at that time. And it was their plan to completely do a deconstruct and reconstruct of America and the rest of the world. And their plan, for the most part, has worked, I'll be honest with you, although it is starting to fall apart at the seams now. because the neocons who were aligned with the Republicans have now left because Donald Trump is he is the Republican nominee. They've gone over to Hillary's side. So they've returned to their radical leftist liberal roots, which is where they came from. And of course, you have people like William Crystal and all those other cats that are so adamantly in favor of internationalism and globalism and American interventionism, using America's men and women, whether they're straight, gay, transgender, who cares? They want them out there. They want them spilling their blood and losing their lives for their little wars and their bigger wars. And we got a bigger war coming up. You know, we are on the precipice of World War III. Not a lot of people are aware of that, but I've talked about this last week. We've got troops all along the Russian and Poland border, right? Russia, Poland. Now, just think of it. What if they had all those troops here on the Mexican border? What if just on the other side of the wall, about a mile or two away from where I'm broadcasting in Laredo, there were Russian tanks over there? Now, hey, there might be. I mean, you know, for all intents and purposes, there actually could be, and we may not know it. But let's just say we did. You know, how freaky, how intense, and how unnerving would that feel to us Americans? So this is the state of where we are right now, and it's a fascinating state. It is a state of disarray, a state of confusion, a state of chaos. I've never seen anything like this in my entire life, and I have to admit, I'm liking it. I'm actually enjoying watching this on so many levels. And now, let me get back to Trump. This is where it all started. Trump is a master, an absolute master of bringing two things together for the purpose and benefits of his own ascension. And this is politics. People say that Donald Trump doesn't have any experience. That could not be farther from the truth. Trump has plenty of experience in politics. Business is politics. It is personal politics. It is the politics of power. And the politics of power are measured by what you can and cannot do, what you can get done and cannot get done. This is the measure of personal politics and business. The measure of politics in politics is not what you can or cannot do or can and cannot get done. It's about how long you can stay around in order to participate in a system that will cut you a check and allow you to have benefits that other people don't get, whether it's an expense account, whether it's a private jet, whether it's a free meal, whatever those things are. The politics of politics is to stick around. The politics of business is to get things done, by and large. Unless, of course, you're somewhere in middle management where a lot of cases people are doing it for you and you're not necessarily getting it done yourself. But that's a different story. Anyway, let's get back to Trump. So I'm watching him in his press conference and acceptance speech because he basically brought up these two talking points or these two platform pieces and brought them together in both instances. He was talking about ISIS. He loves to talk about ISIS. He loves to have that imminent existential threat, which may or may not always be true or real, as we've seen, and as it relates to how ISIS was a fabricated, formulated, and synthetic, absolutely synthetic creation. But he loves to bring it up. You know, he's in the Pamela Geller, Daniel Pipes camp. And the Israelis love it because it keeps the heat off the Israelis. Yeah, you go after ISIS as much as you want. You go after radical Islamic terrorists as much as you want. Poke the stick at the boogeyman in the room. Just go for it. Go for it. Let us just, you know, be over here in the shadows and let us do our thing in the meantime. So Trump was banging the ISIS radical Islamic terror drum. And then he connected it up to the LGBTQ community and connected the dots between Orlando and having to protect people from ISIS and the Islamic radical terror threat and to protect the LGBTQ community. And he's basically pledging his support to protect them. And so if you are a straight conservative Republican and you're hearing this, and you may not agree with the LGBTQ thing at all, but you would agree with Trump going after ISIS and keeping, America safe no matter, what your sexual proclivities are or what you believe your gender, your non-binary gender to be, if there is a gender to be. You may not understand or get that at all, but you will get the fact that there is a threat. And it's like, yeah, he wants to take care of the threat. He wants to take care of the threat. I don't care who is part, they're part of us now. They're part of us now. So, I'll buy into this because we're all one nation under God when we're under threat. You see, that is a unifying principle. This is how leaders, and to some extent even fascism, works. Because you must have a unifying principle so that people can sign off on it, philosophically sign off on it. It is the major talking point in any political platform. It is the unifying principle. So for Trump, the unifying principle is ISIS, radical Islam, terror, safety, security. It's all under one umbrella. For the Democrats, it's Donald Trump. Everything else is tertiary. Their unifying principle is Donald Trump. So Trump, in an extremely cagey and clever fusion of two disparate realities that are connected to one group, the conservatives, who may not necessarily relate to one version of that disparate reality, but really relate to the other, which is protection, they'll sign off on it. They will sign off on it on a subconscious level because their need for security and safety and their need to be part of a larger group is greater than their need to bifurcate, judge, and separate themselves from a very small faction of their contingency, which may or may not even be part of their group. So they are making a morally based decision which supersedes a lesser morally based decision. Because when it comes down to it, what are you going to really sign off on? Are you going to sign off on the group that theoretically will come in, rape your wife, rape your kid, cut your head off, cut your testicles off, and sodomize you? And would you sign off on protecting yourself against that group or against another group that really just wants you to force you to use a different bathroom? I mean, so do you understand what I'm saying? So this is the unifying principle that Trump has found. And everything now is being funneled through the unifying principle. And all the messaging is about the unifying principle. And even his shots across the bow to Hillary, and that Hillary and the Democrats created ISIS, which they did. I mean, he is not lying, although the roots of ISIS go back much further. You know, the roots of ISIS go to Al-Qaeda and our relationship to Al-Qaeda and the Taliban and the groups that we created in the Middle East during the 1970s and the 1980s, during the war between Russia and the Afghanistans. Also, there was a war that went on between Iraq and Iran, which was sort of happening simultaneously. And we were in the Iraqi camp during that time. This is how we built our relationship up with Saddam Hussein. He was an ally of the Americans. He was a moderate. He was not a radical Muslim cleric. And that's what Saddam Hussein was dealing with. He was dealing with the Islamization of Iraq coming from Iran. That's why they were at war. He didn't want it. It wasn't because he was a despot, although he was. You know, let's be honest now. Now that we've seen all this shit just get unraveled at the DNC, is Hillary that much different than Saddam Hussein? Is she that much different than Gaddafi, the man that she killed? In fact, one could even make a case that Gaddafi was a far superior human and a far superior leader than Hillary, the woman who killed him. We came, we saw, he died. How can you elect this woman? How can you elect this woman? If you wanted to elect a woman, there's somebody by the name of Jill Stein who is a far better candidate than Hillary Clinton. If you are so hell-bent on voting sex, then mark Jill Stein off in your ballots. Mark her off. I want to talk about Jill Stein, and I want to talk about Bernie Sanders. My, oh my, oh my. Did Bernie Sanders sell his party out, or what? His legacy is so tarnished right now. And a lot of people will say, but you don't know. You don't know the pressure that was put on him. You don't know. This is a high-stakes game. You think going into politics is going to be nothing but a bed of roses? That just because you don't have to work at a real job a day in your life, that you're not going to come up against a moment or two in time where not only is your nerve and mettle tested, but so is your conscience? And if you don't think that that's the case, then you should have no business in politics. Or maybe you do and just stay deluded. It is a dirty game. It is a dirty game that is about as close to racketeering as possible. And when it comes to the Clintons, there is more and more information that's coming out now about the Clintons' ties to China, the Triad, Clinton's ties to Russia, Clinton's ties to the KGB. I mean, this is a crime syndicate family. Politics is a crime syndicate, and it is supported, unfortunately, I hate to say this, but it is supported by our alphabet agencies. It is supported by our military for the most part, and it is certainly supported by the mainstream media, because the mainstream media is owned by the very same people who created the crime syndicates for these families to become members of. Do you think that the Clintons and the Bushes started their own crime syndicates? No, they had help. That's how this game works. You say you want in, they bring you in, you do a few jobs, you kill a few people, you get a little more responsibility, a little more turf, a little more action, and you rise and you rise and you rise. Rise, rise, rise. That's how the game works. Little known factoid. Maybe some of you, there are a lot of people who listen to my show. You're super astute. Very astute. Some of the best, I think, I don't have a lot of listeners, but I put you up against anybody in terms of knowledge, in terms of instincts, street smarts, research. Oh, yeah. Well, I'll throw this out there. Bill Clinton, as many people probably know, is illegitimate. There's a term for that, and the term is a bastard. He is a bastard. And he was raised in a place called Hope, Arkansas, and his mother and his uncle were involved in crime. And his uncle was a pimp, and he was a drug dealer, and he did a lot of other things on a local level in Arkansas, Hot Springs, Arkansas. His mother, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, involved in running a brothel. That was one of her gigs, because she was connected to the uncle who was a pimp and got women. So this is the environment that Bill Clinton was raised in. He was raised in a criminal environment. Now, most people in Arkansas know that his father is none other than one Winfred Rockefeller. So he is the offspring of the Rockefeller family. And this is what the Rockefellers and the Rothschilds and some of the other snake families do, that they will go around the country and they will impregnate women. And they will know who the women are, they will keep tabs on them, and at some point they will eventually come back around to their son. Now, given this model, it is not surprising that it has also been ascribed to Barack Obama. And by the way, there's some very interesting news about Obama that I'm going to sort of get into at the top of the hour. And it's coming at a time when there are serious cracks and fissures in the Democratic National Party. I mean, I watched a lot. I didn't watch it on CNN or Fox because they're really not going to show this. But if you go on to Alex Jones and watch some of his videos, street videos, you'll see that there is a lot of unrest. I mean, people are just tearing the guts from the party inside out. The Sanders delegates are completely demoralized. Completely demoralized. What Bernie did the other night was just unconscionable. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. This is what you get. And this, it hits me close to home. Bernie's a Virgo. And Virgos are not always the people with the stiffest spines. They just don't exhibit that. The sign is mutable. It's changeable, and that's what he did. He got changeable. But here's where my real problem with Sanders is. I kind of get that he had to do what he had to do. I kind of get that on some level. Like maybe he got a right cross to the chin, and there are some photos that or left cross to the chin. There are some photos on the internet that basically put this theory forward, because there was a pre-Bernie photo at the convention, and then a post-Bernie convention photo. Although he was still there, he's got a big chunk of his face missing on the right-hand side. It's like a huge divot, like somebody hit him under the eye. I wanted to hit him. I totally wanted to hit him the other night. But maybe somebody already did that, which is why he was acting accordingly. But here's my problem with Bernie. Okay, it's not that he changed and decided to completely go over to the Clinton camp. It's how he did it. It is how he did it. It was in his words. It was in his actions. All he could do and all he could muster was a really pathetic cheer and fake enthusiasm in many respects, fake enthusiasm for Hillary Clinton. And if he had done something to the effect of, I'm standing here before you today amidst of some controversy and some turmoil, and I'm not happy. I am not happy. Based on what's come out, I've had to do a lot of soul searching and questioning myself, my party affiliation. Now, the good thing he could have done right there is he could have just walked out. He could have walked out and said, I am renouncing. He already did. When he runs, by the way, and he's going to run again in Vermont, when he runs again, he's going to be an independent. He's no longer a Democrat. But that's window dressing at this point. But he could have said, I'm renouncing my relationship with the Democratic National Party, and I'm leaving. And as you, my delegates, you will have to vote or move on your own conscience just as I have. Now, maybe the stakes were too high for Bernie Sanders. So perhaps he could have said something along the same lines, that I am dismayed, I am, to some extent, even crestfallen. But there is a process that's in place. It is under review. And based on that, we have really no other recourse at this point than to somehow bring our delegates and our energy and our resolution to the Clinton party, and that we can somehow form something that's greater, and hopefully our ideas can interject and find a place there. And I know I've been critical of Mrs. Clinton, and moving forward I'll still be critical, but at this time we need to be a unified front. And I'm sorry, I can't do anything more about it for right now, other than tell you that I'm disappointed, and I am hopeful that we can, garner something and bridge our worlds and come up with a better kind of model because of this. So I urge you to vote for Hillary Clinton in the hopes that we can bring our two worlds closer together. Now, you say something like that, people would say, he's kind of right. And if he really allowed that emotion to come through, he's having an authentic moment. He's having an authentic moment. But none of what he had was authentic. That's the problem. None of it was authentic. That's why people are pissed. Because he was the guy that was supposed to represent a certain form of authenticity, and he did not do it. That is the sellout. Because what people are craving for is the real. People want something real, something honest, something with meat on its bones, something that is organic. They want analog. That's what people want. We are craving that. It's like somebody who's been on a, crappy processed food, fast food diet with candy. At some level, what you're really, really craving for is organic vegetables that are cooked nicely. And if you're into meat or grass-fed, something that's organic and not grass-fed and organic from China. That's where we are. And this is why we're at such a critical point and a critical juncture in our society. It's all breaking down. Even on the Republican side, it broke down. On the Republican side, you had the old guard that could not do anything to derail the Trump machine. On the Democratic side, you had the young guard, the young people, the people who are desperately looking to have their voice represented. And by the way, they know Hillary Clinton does not represent their voice. They know that she is a complete and utter fraud. And not only is she a fraud, but with her and Debbie Wasserman Schultz, they conspired to take the election away from Sanders. Now, Sanders may not have been a real player to begin with. They may have played him, or he may have just been playing a role so they could get his outsider votes, because this is the time of the outsider. This is where Uranus and Aries really comes into play. People are pissed. We've had enough. Everybody's had enough. Everybody's triggered now. It's such a thin wire between having a reasoned response to, pulling out the machete. And this is where we are now. Anyway, I think Bernie's people were trying to be migrated over because Hillary is not an outsider. She is such a dyed-in-the satanic wool insider that it is ridiculous. So they had to have some kind of outsider element, create the bridge, bring them across. Sanders is the shepherd. Delegates are the sheep. Didn't work. WikiLeaks destroyed any of that kind of transference of not only delegates, but trust. WikiLeaks absolutely destroyed that. And to add insult to injury, Hillary Clinton decides that she's going to add Debbie Wasserman Schultz to her campaign. She's going to run her campaign. I mean, if you're Hillary Clinton, don't you want to distance yourself from DWS? Of course you do. But this is not how the game is played. Hillary Clinton is doubling down all the time. She doubled down with Tim Kaine. She's doubling down with Debbie Wasserman Schultz. She doesn't care. They don't care. Henry Kissinger, her handler, does not care. There is a sadistic element to all of this. They're going to put it in your face, and you're going to accept it. You're going to bow down, and you're going to kiss her ass, because this is the new model. It's the new model. And it may not work. It may not work. She may not be healthy enough, or the clone may not be healthy enough. I mean, who the hell really knows what's going on with these people? You know, I've read reports, and I've said this before, that Hillary Clinton was seen in two separate places at the same time during the 2008 national primary, right? When she was running against Obama, she was seen in two separate places. It was in New York. It was like during a fundraising kind of moment in time. Well, we are at the precipice. We are at the precipice of change. We're at the precipice of something far greater coming through now. This is it. This is it, boys and girls. This is the time of awakening. And if you don't take advantage of it, if you are not on board right now in your own hearts and minds, if you have not figured out where this is all going, then you're going to miss out. You're going to miss out on the clarity of the moment. And even though deciphering and deconstructing reality is difficult at this time, with psyops and false flags and hoaxes, it is almost impossible, not totally, but almost impossible to discern a real event from a staged event. I mean, even now in Europe, when somebody kills somebody, if they do kill somebody at all, that somebody's name is changed. And they're no longer a terrorist. They're no longer a radical Muslim. They're considered a German, or they're considered a Frenchman, or they're considered an Italian, or they're considered a Spaniard, depending upon where the quote-unquote event takes place, and they have their name changed to something like David. It could be Al-Mansur Ahmed Ali Khan, and the next thing you know, it's David. So reality is becoming more and more like the Truman Show, and that it's harder and harder to distinguish what's real and what's not real. In which case, always opt that it's not real. Always opt that it's not real, because there's a very large chance that it isn't real. Now, it could be a mixture of real or not real, which is called the hybrid event, but that's okay. At least you have some not real mixed into it. So even though it's getting more difficult to discern or to understand what's going on at an event level, because the events are staged, you can know in the confines of your heart and mind that reality is shifting, that something is going on, that the truth from an astrological level on a collective front, or at least the impetus towards it, and not having the patience to deal with the bullshit, the facade, and the illusion anymore, that's becoming more prevalent. Now, could this be tied to the heat rising in the solar system and the galaxy? Are we not only witnessing the rise of temperatures, but are we witnessing the rise of our collective and individual pulses, so that there is a magnetic broadcast of new energies coming out through our solar system and the galaxy itself? When Saturn gets to 26 Sagittarius, astrologically, not astronomically, but astrologically, it will be conjunct the galactic center. Now, this will happen towards the end of next year. This is going to be a very interesting time just in terms of collective energy. that we can really, how do I say this, have a definitive stance. Because we are moving further away from equivocation. And I don't care who you are. I don't care if you're Black Lives Matter. I don't care if you're non-binary, transgender, radical, revolutionary, anti-white male privilege. I don't care if you're a privileged conservative or white middle America. We're moving past equivocation. Everybody is basically saying, this is it, this is it, this is it, this is my truth, this is my truth, this is my truth, this is my truth, this is how I feel, and fuck you. It's across the board. And on some level, I actually applaud that because I think we all need it. Now, if we could get it all moving in the same direction, then that would be a wonderful thing. Saturn and Sagittarius conjunct the Galactic Center provides the potential for unifying in a moment of time where we are all on the same page. And it's going to be hard. I mean, we're just so divisive and fragmented. So even beginning to think that we could have a moment in time like that is daunting, to say the least. But the people that manufacture reality and are very good at it would probably be quite capable and able in staging an event that looks, for all intents and purposes, like World War III is about to happen. And at the 11th hour and 57th second, it is called off. Or something happens that there's a stand down or a small skirmish and it's put down, and the next thing you know, we're dealing with the prospect of unity. Because it will take a global event to unify people because we were so utterly fragmented. And they've known this for years. You go back and you look at the stuff from the Club of Rome in the 1960s. It would either have to be a natural disaster, a world war, a catastrophic event. That would be something along the lines of a nuclear power plant exploding, the introduction of an alien or extraterrestrial race or species, whatever that is. It would be that kind of event which would bring the world together. I mean, what if you created an event like that and got real close? Then all of a sudden, the world was together. Whoever helped create that moment and solve that moment so that we could back off of that moment, that's the person to watch out for. I'm telling you right now. A lot of people think it's Putin, that Putin is the Antichrist. Trump's the Antichrist. Obama's the Antichrist. The Antichrist is a consciousness. I tapped into this a long time ago. When I was in Wisconsin back in the 1980s, around 1986, I was hanging out at this farm, and I was having this very strong sensation that the Antichrist was not a figure, but a consciousness, and that it could be located in any number of figures that it needed to do its bidding for. There was a feeling. There was an energy. So it could manifest in a 11th hour moment where the unifying principle brings everybody together. Because we know, and we know this for a fact, that Saul Alinsky said that if you continue to run the same action for too long, people will get tired of it. So you need to know when to back off. Just like Black Lives Matters and some of the events associated with them have been kind of spaced out over time. We weren't hit over the head again and again and again and again and again with Black Lives Matters situations. And so by spacing them out over time, then what happens is that we don't get fatigued. And what Alinsky knew is that you could get action fatigue. How about that for a term? Action fatigue. Okay, so what I want to do is I want to take a bit of a break here, and I'm going to play you some bits and pieces from the Democratic National Congress. You're gonna trip out over some of this stuff that I'm about to play. It has to do with the fact that delegates were essentially escorted out of the DNC, or if they weren't escorted out, they weren't allowed back into their seats, and their seats were replaced by people from Craigslist. It's totally crazy. Huh? Am I right or wrong? Totally crazy. All right, let me do this. Let me play a little bit of music. Again, I'm having to play my music because the shows are going up on YouTube now, which I'm so thoroughly grateful for. And they're getting a little bit of a wider distribution. So let me play this. This is another blast from my past. And it is a track, it was a piece of music where it's a vocal sample from a French singer called Brigitte Fontaine. And I added some beats and samples to it, and it's called Fontanic. It's 3 minutes, 39 seconds. You're listening to the Friday FARcast. I'm Robert Phoenix. And when we get back to the top of the hour, we'll continue our exploration and deconstruction of the DNC and what is going on behind the scenes. Here I am. Yeah, that was Fontanic, and I hope you could hear that. I didn't have a chance to upload that, so we were just going ambient live on the new mic. Welcome back. The time is 1 o'clock here in Laredo, Texas. Not broadcasting from Austin, but Laredo. I'm writing this piece right now for the website. I'm almost done. We got about another maybe 700 words to go. And one time when I was around 30 years old, I was living in Seattle, and I was parked down by, at that time, what was the Kingdome. It's no longer there. And it was kind of one of the seedier sides of Seattle. Seattle's changed so much since 1990. It's become, of course, built up by Amazon and Microsoft money. But back then, it was kind of it had a bit of an edge to it, just like how Portland had a bit of an edge to these northwestern towns where drifters would come and, they would hang out and find these flop houses in certain parts of the city that were still sort of cheap and affordable. Maybe they'd find a little work here and there, working on a dock or working in a lumber mill. In Seattle, it was a jumping off point for the fishermen going up to Dutch Harbor in Alaska. It had a bit of an edgy quality to it back then. So I was parked down by the Kingdome, and I was walking into the center of town. I was actually going to the courthouse. And as I passed one of these sort of, apartment buildings that were like flop houses where you rent them for a week or a month, I began to smell a smell I'd never smelled before in my life. I can't even begin to describe it, but the best sort of example I could come up with was sort of a smell of rotting leather or meat, with the smell of kind of rotting, compost and leaves with kind of a wet leather. It was just an unusual, sharp, acrid, biting smell. And as I got closer to the smell, I saw these two guys who were in hazmat suits, and they were hauling somebody shrouded in a white gurney. They were dead, obviously. And that was the smell. I was smelling death, but not just any kind of death. This was the death of somebody who had been dead for a while, weeks at the very least. It is an unmistakable smell. And as I was watching the Democratic National Convention, the image of that body and the remembrance of that stench began to waft into my consciousness. This is what we're witnessing. It is epic, and the Democratic Party, I guarantee you, will never, ever, ever be the same. Why don't we do this? Why don't I play you a few little snippets here? Hopefully, you'll be able to pick them up. This is a guy who is a Bernie delegate. He was at the convention, and this is what happened to him. It's about 3 minutes long, and his name is Jorge Rodriguez. You're going to hear what happened to him and his seat, and I'm going to read you a few things here. So let's have a listen in. This was posted on the 27th, so 2 days ago.
Hey everybody, I am at the convention, obviously on the side. I just left my delegation seat because I'm more concerned about something I'm seeing. I don't have any facts about any of this. I don't want to make allegations of things that may or may not be true, but I got here late. Everybody who's been following me knows that I didn't go to bed yesterday until 11 a.m. this morning. Slept in, didn't get to the convention on time, got here around 5:30, 6 o'clock. When I got here, it was empty. Not a lot of people here for a lot of different reasons. There are Hillary delegates that aren't here because of events that are going on outside the convention, and there are a lot of Bernie people who aren't here because they're protesting outside. I got up and I was contemplating leaving, but I'm going to say, because the convention is full now. Every seat in the house is full. So those seat fillers you guys were hearing about, it's real. They're in here now. There are a lot of people sitting there who I don't know or have seen the entire time I was here. I've been hearing from some of you who have been contacting me by text and direct message that the media is talking about how the convention looks more unified today, that everybody's applauding in unity and chanting in unity, and it's because the Bernie people aren't here. The Bernie people aren't here, and the people that are here are getting paid to sit in their seats and clap their hands. That's what I believe. Not 100% sure, but that's what I believe. That's what I see with my eyes. They have the floor closed off right now for anybody who gets out of their seat to go to the bathroom, which is how this all started for me, or to do anything. If you're hungry, if you leave your seat, you can't get back in right now. And my guess is that's because a seat filler is in your seat. And the optics of everybody having to shift and stand and move is not something they want to see. I don't know if they're going to do it for all the speakers tonight, or if it was maybe just for Biden and then maybe just for Obama. But there are people in that hall who are being represented in the media as Bernie Sanders people, and they are not. Don't believe what you see on TV. Don't get mad at the people that you think are here representing you, because they're not here right now. They're fighting outside. I'm going to join them later. I think it's important that some of us are in here with the eyes and ears open to find out what's going on. But that's what I see with my eyes right now. There are a lot of people here that aren't delegates who are standing and clapping and cheering for somebody that we aren't ready to believe in. Share the word. Share this message. People need to know. The media needs to know. So we stop telling everybody in America that we're together, because we're not together yet. There's a lot of work left to be done. The Democrats are not going to get a free ride on this. We will hold them accountable for what they've done, because that's what all you told me today based on my earlier video. There's no one issue that's going to make any of you ready for Hillary. So there's a lot of work left to be done, and get to it now. You guys got to start. It took me a long time to get this live connection going. I don't know when I'm going to be able to go on again. I'm going to kind of shut my phone down for a little while, let the battery charge. Do some of the work for me, guys. Share this. Get it out. Talk to you later. Bye.
Okay, so what he's basically saying is what we've been talking about for the majority of the show, is that this party is completely dysfunctional and fragmented, and it is endemic of what is happening with the system. It theoretically should have been a slam dunk that everybody who was so in love and inured with Obama that they could just completely move over to the Clinton camp because of her association with the Obama administration and all of the, all the talking points that we get when it comes to dealing with Hillary and her base. But it's not the case. It is not the case. It's not a slam dunk. And I would be very, because it's getting really hard now to kind of understand and disassemble reality a little bit. But I've been talking about this for a while, that Hillary might get to a point where she is going to either be too sick or feign sickness to the point where she'll have to drop out. I'm getting vibes that she does not run for president. Okay, now I could be completely off about this, but it's starting to feel like this to me. And all it's going to take is one more broadside against the Clinton machine from a series of WikiLeaks leaks, and apparently there's more coming. And Assange has said that the next batch of WikiLeaks will put her in jail. Now, if that's the case, and WikiLeaks has been pretty spot on when it's come to saying, hey, this is, I'm not a big WikiLeaks fan, by the way. I think it's completely controlled. That's another show. But if that's the case, then WikiLeaks has been consistent all along about what it is that they said they were going to deliver, then delivering what they delivered, and for the most part being spot on with the information. So if Assange or whoever's running the show WikiLeaks says that this will put her in jail, there's a very good chance that it will. And at that point, Hillary could bow out, be sick, have another one of her episodic moments so that she doesn't have to deal with the scrutiny of the press and having to answer real questions. Let's hear another clip. This is from the California delegation. And this woman is talking about how white noise machines were put in behind the California delegation at the convention so that they could drown out, the white noise could drown out their protest and jeers. Let's check this out. It's about a minute and a half long.
Hey guys, this is Eden here. I finally got into the convention. We're in the California section. Apparently they've been letting everybody, all the other states in, and then they weren't letting in the California station. I'm going to turn around and let you see what it looked like when I got in. They said they weren't, but when I got in, all these people were here, and they have already blocked off all of these sections where the Bernie Sanders supporters have been sitting, putting reserve signs on all of these seats where we can't sit. And if you look up here at this gray box, that is a white noise machine used to block out our chants and cheers. So share this video. The California Bernie Sanders delegates have been held outside their entrance for longer than every other state, and they've blocked off all of the seats with reserve signs for seat fillers or scabs, and they've placed a white noise machine above our section. Yes, using seat fillers. They're paying people $50 a day to wear Hillary shirts and hold signs and come in here and sit down, so there's no room for elected delegates. I have the California Democrats list of official elected delegates, and Hillary and Bernie Sanders people with the names on them, and I can tell you that this section has not been full. The section has not been full every day, and we come in and now they've blocked off all the main seats, and the Hillary people were standing outside. They were saying, what's the plan? What are the instructions? And they were saying the instructions are to save 10 seats. So they've already instructed the Hillary delegates in California when they get here to block off 10 seats. These are all the people who were in here when I just walked in, when I was told that seating hadn't begun yet. He's pulling off the reserve signs. Guys, please share this video. Please share this video under a public status. Please share this video under public status.
So here we have somebody that's there live at the convention and watching these shenanigans taking place. This is the world we're living in now. Now, the Gateway Pundit posted this. Somebody grabbed this. It was from Craigslist, and it's been pulled down, subsequently pulled down. This was from 9:29 a.m., and it looks like that was yesterday or the day before yesterday, 27th. It's on the 27th. Says, actors needed for National Convention, Philadelphia. Looking for 700 people to be utilized as actors during the National Convention. Notice they didn't say Democratic, just National Convention. We currently have a number of empty seats that will need to be filled, as we are currently removing a number of people and need to refill their seats for the remainder of the conference. We will be paid $50 each night for the remainder of the convention. We will be required to cheer at all times and will be asked to dress properly and possibly wear some promotional material. How about that? How about that? If that's the case, if this is real, then what we're seeing is another manipulation of reality. Absolutely mind-blowing. Here's the RT piece with Assange that says that the next leak will lead to Hillary's arrest. Let's see what Russia Today has to say.
Now, after releasing emails that led to DNC chairwoman Debbie Wasserman Schultz stepping down from her controversial role in undermining the Sanders presidential campaign, Julian Assange is now preparing to release more leaked emails, and this time he says they will, quote, provide enough evidence to indict Hillary Clinton. Assange also made it clear there is no evidence of Russian involvement in the email hack, despite the Clinton campaign's claims. For details on this story, we go now to Laura Smith in the UK.
Julian Assange, the founder of WikiLeaks, of course, is still holed up in the Ecuadorian embassy here in London, but once again he's proven that he's not just sitting there twiddling his thumbs. Not content with releasing 20,000 emails from the Democratic National Committee, Assange now says he'll be releasing more material that he says will provide enough evidence to see Hillary Clinton arrested. He's given a series of interviews in which he says that there's no proof whatsoever that the emails that he's already released came from Russian sources. He says that the DNC servers were ripe for hacking, that they're riddled with holes, and that documents hacked over a number of years are out there in the public domain in multiple copies. He says when the Clinton campaign talks about having proof that the emails were hacked by Russians, he says, I don't know what they're talking about, but they're not talking about my leak. In fact, he's quite coy about the whole thing. Of course, WikiLeaks likes to create maximum ambiguity about where its information comes from. It's very hot on the protection of sources. And he said maybe one day our source or sources will step forward and some people will have egg on their faces, or read into that what you will. Of course, he's at pains to say that it's not important where the emails come from. What's important is what's in them. And what we have now, he says, is the Clinton campaign using information about past hacks to divert attention away from what's actually in those emails. But that this diversionary tactic itself raises questions. Clinton here is presented with a political scandal, and what she does is blame the Russians, blame the Chinese, according to Assange. And if she does that in government, he says that's a style that could cause serious conflict. What of the content of those emails, though? Well, the leaks, of course, rocked the beginning of the DNC and brought about the ouster of its chairwoman. What they do, Assange says, is show collusion at the very top of the Democratic Party to get rid of Bernie Sanders. He argues that Clinton, of course, may have won the nomination anyway, but now it's impossible to know, so that her nomination de facto has no political legitimacy. WikiLeaks, as Assange said, is set to release further emails, and it's clear that he thinks these could be the nail in Hillary Clinton's coffin.
So there you go. There's your RT update on Hillary Clinton and Julian Assange. So we have something to look forward to. Hey, this is an exciting time to be alive.
I mean, think about it. We have bitched and we have moaned for the last 8 years. And we have artfully deconstructed and pried ourselves away from consensus reality to the point where we can be as objective as we possibly can be while still working on our own inner material. And we're witnessing a tidal change about to happen. Now, this is a really important time, and you can't go back into your shell now because if for some reason, now, look, we got 3 scenarios on the 4 scenarios on the election reality front. One scenario is that there's a war, and the war is very close. We're very close to pushing Russia into a place where Russia may just decide to push back. Very close. He gets closer if Hillary Clinton's elected. She's already stated she'll shoot Russian planes down. You shoot Russian planes down. It's wartime, baby. There's that. So if that happens, we could run into a problem with the elections. But let's just say the elections do move forward. We have an issue with the vote that could extend everything, and then we're dealing with the headache of either a even-numbered Supreme Court or the Congress or the Senate or the UN or Michael Strachan and Kelly Ripa deciding upon who's going to be the next president. Or it's Hillary and Trump. If Trump gets in, I believe, and this is my belief, not everybody believes it, but I believe he is enough of a wild card to slow down the gallop of the New World Order. Now, there may be a different version of the New World Order that they may have to come up with as a result of a Trump presidency, and in which case it could take time, and it may be very deceptive. But what it will do is it will give us a little bit more time, and we need more time. You know, people say there's no such thing as time and space. Well, this is true, but in this 3 reality or 3D construct, we need to have more time because more people need to wake up. You know, more people need to be able to have more resources at their disposal so that we can begin to create a new paradigm. Or if not, then we're just going to go into the revolutionary mode, and it's going to happen, and it could get real ugly. So to that extent, we always come to this point in the show where we ask ourselves, what can we do about it all? How can we move from being spectators on the sidelines of our own experience to people that are active participants in a world, whatever this world is, that we want to change and transform and create? It always starts on the day-to-day level. It always starts with who you are, how you interact with people, how you treat people. This is the most important thing that all of us can do. And some of us fall short sometimes. We're not perfect, in which case we have to forgive ourselves as, you know, Prime Creator has forgiven us. Knowing that we put our best foot forward. You don't put your best foot forward, that's another discussion. You put your best foot forward, and you really, really do your utmost in order to live a life of character and integrity and love, and to treat people accordingly. That's the best place to start. Then you throw in a little discernment so that you're not just a complete sheep and lemming, so that you can at times adjust your sails and say no to things that you actually feel are no worthy. It's an important part. It's an important part of the discernment process. Discerning is learning when to say no or to say I do not consent. And then the third plank is to find something you're passionate about, interested in, whether it's astrology, whether it's podcasting, whether it's videos, whether it's making things, whether it's growing things. Get into it. Get into it. Get into it with all your heart, mind, soul, and being, because why else are you here? And I know sometimes it's difficult. I know sometimes people have money issues, time issues, relationship issues. It's time to sort through them. It's time to sort through them. This is what Jupiter and Virgo is all about. It's expanding the areas that you need to work on and get them finished and done. Jupiter in Libra promises the opportunity for collaboration. We're going to have a very strong peace versus war movement during Jupiter's run through Libra, starting in September, going for a whole year. It's going to be opposing Uranus and Aries in 2017. It's going to get a little bit of an opposition at the end of 2016 here. So we're going to have this kind of tug of war between peace and war through, a lot of 2017 and some of 2016. But really, Jupiter in Libra bodes well for collaboration and working for other people or working with other people and finding real synergy in your life. It's going to be a great, great transit with Jupiter and Libra. So between now and then, though, we've got a little bit more Jupiter and Virgo. Tie up those loose ends, learn to discern, learn when to say no, and when you say yes with all your heart, mind, body, and soul. And that's it. That's it. And then we look to Prime Creator each day so that we can get closer to a new model on this planetary, third-dimensional, matrix-like existence. And stay open to that and find your part, find your role. This is a grand symphony of life that we're in. And everybody has an instrument. Everybody. Even some of the people here. Look, I got to tell you, I've seen some pretty desperate people in Laredo. People living under overpasses. People walking around, young men who look like they're ostensibly from Mexico, walking around with plastic cups in their hands at the stoplights for change. People, everybody has a purpose. Everybody is an instrument and can be an instrument of this great symphony of creation on this planet. And to live from that place is to live from a place that's inspired, totally inspired. You put it all together, and this is what we can do. And at some point, we will be joining forces. We'll be joining forces. We'll be joining together in our efforts to create a new and better and different world where the values that we hold sacred and dear are part of that world. And there will be a time when hopefully we can get past this biohacking that's been taking place with our skies and the electronic smog. There is a time when we will have new gifts and skills and abilities that will emerge through us. And that will be an incredibly interesting time. But they will only emerge when we have the responsibility and the love that grounds that kind of transference of wisdom, knowledge, and power. And when it does, things will get real interesting. And the human species as we know it will begin to morph into something quite different. And I'm not talking about the AI landscape, where through technology we morph into something different. No, this is a natural evolutionary process. There's your roadmap. Go out and live it. Go out and do it. Go out and be it. Sometimes it's challenging, especially if you feel like you're alone. And I know a lot of people have woken up and they have seen what's going on with their friends, and they've seen what's going on with their peer groups. And in many cases, their friends and peer groups are liberal or progressive or stuck in a form of consciousness. Sometimes they're even stuck in that real conservative, heavy-duty form of consciousness. Either way, they're stuck. And people are waking up and they're seeing where they've come from. And they're seeing that their friends in their peer group are not anywhere close to breaking ranks. Don't let that dissuade you. Just like how people walked out of that convention, that is symbolic. That is symbolic. People were using their discernment. They were discerning between the party line and their personal truths as they were exemplified by a man who utterly failed them. And they chose to walk in a different direction. They used their discernment and said no. And that is the symbol of our times. And if enough of us do that, then the system itself begins to lose its power, not just from a place where we are voting them into some form of acceptability, consent, and existence, but from an energetic level, from a psychic level, from a philosophical level, from a spiritual level. When we unplug from that machine, they may be able to fill those seats with actors. They may be able to turn the white noise up a skosh so that we cannot be heard. But I guarantee you, over time, it will affect them, and they cannot manipulate reality fast enough. They just can't. And I'll tell you, these people are probably on pins and needles here. And they're using everything in their power and their influence to keep the party line narrative happening. And when that takes place, when there's such a concerted effort to shut down information, to truncate the truth, to create more webs of lies and illusions, then there are more opportunities for them to fuck up, especially in a short period of time. The one thing we have to be concerned about is we have to be concerned about another event, another type of crisis that takes us away from this drilling down of consensus reality that is now taking place. So if you look up into the sky, there's a really interesting aspect taking place between Saturn, Antares, and Mars. Really, really interesting. You've got Saturn and Mars in the sign of Sagittarius, even though up in the sky it's looking more like Scorpio, right? Because astronomical versus astrological. But then you have Antares coming in, I believe Leo. So it's got like a little tiny kind of kite pattern in the sky with these two. It's an interesting energy, or at least it's an interesting aggregation of celestial energy from a geometric perspective in the sky that's happening right now. We are very close, again, I want to stress this one more time, we're very close to a global conflict. And this is the ultimate false flag, which is unfortunate, because then the world will never be the same. And it may never be the same anyway, but we are organic beings engaged in the process of continuity. And so we would like to organically evolve to a place where we have more continuity without our reality and our lives and our sons and daughters being hijacked. So there's another planetary crisis and another reset. And as a result of that, we have order out of chaos. We don't want that. So let us affirm something greater. Let us affirm peace and harmony in our hearts and minds. Let us affirm the guidance of will and direction from the place of the Most High, and the location most deep. And as we affirm this, as we move forward every single day with this affirmation, you become an anchor and a beacon for something more profound to come through. Don't turn back now. There's no turning back now. We have to continue to move forward. Even in my own work, I got to move forward. It's important. These are exciting times. Don't be scared. Don't be freaked out. Have a good laugh every now and then. Because the people that are trying to maintain, control, dominate reality, they are having to work overtime in order to do it. And it is really fucking fun to watch. Really fun to watch. And their days are numbered. Their days are numbered. All right, why don't we shut her down here and let's end on a high note. And wish my son and his team luck. We are playing down here. If you're in the Loretto area, let me know. I'll meet you at the fields tonight. I'll bring an extra beer for you. And with that, let's hold a space for a great weekend for everybody. All right. So you know the drill. Use your head to discern what's real, your heart to stay open to what's possible. I'm Robert Phoenix. You've been listening to the Friday FARcast. I'll be back on Sunday night for a special 11th house. We're getting into more astrology at that point in time. Take good care. Here's our friend from the future, Philip K. Dick.
We are living in a computer-programmed reality, and the only clue we have to it is when some variable is changed and some alteration in our reality occurs. We would have the overwhelming impression that we were reliving the present, déjà vu, perhaps in precisely the same way, hearing the same words, saying the same words. I submit that these impressions are valid and significant, and I will even say this: such an impression is a clue that at some past time point a variable was changed, reprogrammed as it were, and that because of this an alternative world branched off.